have memorandum from Chief Myers regarding a hire of a part-time police officer. Training request for 3 volunteer firefighters to travel outside the county for Pinsky Law Group's Law and Management Conference in Verona, New York, from March 28th, 2019 through March the 31st, 2019.
May I ask about that? Since there's no money that's being requested from the village or from the volunteer fire company, does the village board have to permit the travel?
Is it part of the budget? Is not?
No, it's acknowledgement for insurance purposes that they're traveling outside of the county.
Thank you.
Municipal Solutions contract in connection with the wastewater treatment plant project.
Jim, can you clarify, just explain to the board, those two municipal solutions contracts, that the costs for those are being incurred through the grant, is that correct? Somehow?
That's correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then Municipal Solutions contract for proposed refunding of village public improvement serial bonds. We're going to award the bid on Stanley dump truck. The resolution for fire chief vehicle.
I have
We
a
talked
question
about
on
it
that.
last time.
Jim, on that, is the money appropriated for that, or where is it gonna be appropriated from, or how is that gonna be paid for?
For the,
The resolution for fire chief's vehicle for
Yeah.
28,340.
we're gonna take a transfer out of the capital fund, Parks and Recreation account for roofing. It won't get done before the fiscal year ends. There's $38,000 in there.
That's
So we're
correct.
gonna transfer that over to pay for the chief's car.
Okay. Do we need to have a resolution for that tonight, or
That would help.
could
you
that
could
be
just-
simply done, a resolution for that?
You could just add on the existing resolution to be paid from a capital transfer from Russ Joy Park. That's
Okay.
all.
Are we gonna put that money in the budget for the roof for next year, because it needs to be done?
Yeah, we can put it,
I'm sure we could, but that 38,000 was, when we spoke to.
I thought it was a high
Yeah,
bid,
Roger
high
Pecos and-
estimate to begin with.
yeah, we can put that back in the budget for next year, you know.
Because it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Just, now we can use it for something
Right.
else, so we'll move it there. All right. And then I have the proposal for Wendell bid specs for fire station. It's $41,000. And then we have informal seal bids for unused village vehicles and equipment. New York State Smart Grant Incentive Proposal. I believe Nate already talked to two of the trustees. If you want to explain a bit, so everybody knows what we're talking about.
Sure, so as the board's aware, of course, we were awarded the $2.5 million Smart Growth Award last fall. We were given kind of the beginning of the contract in December, and have been in touch with Empire State Development, discussing the two projects they'd like to see funded. So we've made a lot of progress to date, and have agreed in principle on those projects, and this contract before you, incentive proposal, with your okay, will go before the ESD Board of Directors this month for their approval. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, at some point, are we going to see a copy of that, or?
You should have gotten a copy with your last week.
We did not.
From what?
The actual incentive proposal.
Oh, I waited for Dan to finish with it before I, take to the board. That's, remember what you're talking about, the $25,000?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I will send it to you as soon as I have it. Okay.
We did not. We said we did, okay.
And then we have the revised New York State Environmental Facility Corporation Emergency Loan Bond Resolution.
Jim,
This
I have a question on that. We went from the 1.4 million to
1.9.
1.9. How?
Yes, and
Well, we went from 1.4 million to
To
1.66 million.
Yeah, and then the 1.6 to
And now
1.
this is for an additional 300 and, whatever it is, 318,000, which is an increase in the contingency fund to cover items that weren't included in the original bids.
Okay,
And now, we might have to go to bid on those projects, but this,
Covers it.
yeah, and what we're doing is requesting, with this increase, we're requesting from EFC that they increase the amount of their bond issue with us, which, and that project, that bond, the existing bond is coming due at the end of the month. So we're in the process of renewing it, and so we thought it would be, as long as we're in that process, we add the increase to it for purposes that would come before you, before anything would be approved or paid.
the point is, of course, that they did not put in enough contingency from the beginning. And we have, for example, many more hydrants that were not included, if I'm not mistaken, about 20, and that's a lot of money. And then there are, as I understand it, there are some mistakes on the actual plans. So there have been some accidents, and fixing the accidents always needs money. So it's unfortunate, but this is where we are.
Mayor, this
My
is-
understanding is that we should, there is a possibility that we will not use this money. Just,
Yeah, but this is for the emergency water line.
yes,
Yeah.
that's what I mean, yeah, exactly.
so did O'Brien and Gear, or whoever the engineers were, not do something correctly, or did we just,
Well, they had
EFC?
left things out.
Okay,
And when Tony came on, he went through and later on and realized that there were hydrants that.
That's right, hydrants.
Remember, he did an inventory, and there were several hydrants that should be replaced, and this would be the opportune time to do it. And then there were also 3 valves that need to be repaired, replaced, actually. And so that was for part of the cost.
okay,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah. But again, nothing, this is just an authorization. So, any expenditures that would be added would come before the board for your approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just make a comment on the previous,
Sure.
the resolution for the 2.5 million? There's, we're required to pay 1% of that 25,000.
Thank you.
And so, Dr. Barris,
Yeah.
you might just make a comment. It's to be paid from community development funds,
Okay.
all right?
Does this, the $25,000, is that covering the state's administration costs? Is that what it was?
It's a 1%, you explain
It's
it.
a fee.
Sure, so, in all of our in-person meetings and conference calls, the state made it clear that there was no equity match, but then they worked in, they had told us about a $250 fee, and then in the actual contract, they describe a 1% fee, which is $25,000 for administration. So they're giving us a grant, but taking 1% back to administer it at the agency level.
Boys, give you something, take it back.
Anyways,
Nothing's free.
and then we have the PPD contract to discuss. Right, who wants to say anything about that?
Trustee Harris, do
okay.
you have anything?
Sorry?
Did you have anything to say on the PPD contract, negotiations and proposed contract?
I plan to vote for it as it stands now.
Okay?
Okay, I had a long discussion a week ago Friday with Daniel Larish. And so that clarified my thinking about the matter. So we spoke for an hour on the telephone.
As far as my contribution to the committee, which I'm not on it currently, but I was in the beginning, I believe Mr. Sedota came up with a equitable formula to calculate the amount to be paid by the amount of water that would be treated by our treatment plant for the PPD. I think it's a simple a calculation, and I'm in favor of it.
It's not the water, is it?
Based on what?
Flow.
No, it's the sewer, our sewer rate.
A simple
It's the-
calculation based on their sewer inflow into our
Times
water
our-
treatment plant
yeah, our
times our
rate,
rate.
right.
But yes, it's a calculation that's much more simple than the last contract that we had, and I think it's a fair contract.
The only question that I had was, we talked about the terms, because in the original contract it had for to 2039, is that still in there, or?
We talked about it, remember? I mean, my recommendation is not to go for so many years.
Yeah, no, well, I'm just raising the question now, I mean, I don't have any problem with it, but I mean,
What does
just bringing
everybody
it to the
think?
board's attention, that's all.
I would not go for so many years. That would be my recommendation to the board, not more than 5 at the extreme.
5 would seem reasonable.
Okay, well, if everybody else is done, I have something to say about it, too. First of all, number one, at the last meeting, I presented one example formula option for the PPD contract. I've been informed that the only PPD contract option that can be considered at this time is the one that was presented by the 2 members of that committee, or the village may be in jeopardy of being subject to legal action. The contract being presented today is not, this is number 2, the contract today is, being presented today is not consistent in content with that, of what was previous given to the board. Number 3, section number 1 is called services. It is not clear if this is directed to only sanitary sewer lines, because it does not say that and may be, it does not say that, and may be construed as meaning to include the district having no responsibility for costs or expenses related to the sewage treatment plant. Number 4, this contract does not address any equitable allocation for debt service associated directly with the sewage treatment plant. Number 5, this contract is not transparent on how the charges are derived. Simplifying the formula to set the direct rate at 1/2 the village rate charged to its inside customers is arbitrary in relation to direct cost recovery of services provided. Number 6, for these reasons, I ask the members of the village board to vote no to the resolution that will be presented today for the PPD contract. And I ask that because it would give us opportunity to go back to negotiations if we vote no. But until we present this, it has to be presented for resolution for vote. But if we need to vote no to it, so to go back and set up correct contract.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Can you read the legal part again? If we don't, what's this again? If we don't present it to be voted on.
Right, if we, right. Okay, let's see here.
So it has to be
Yeah,
put forth as a
right.
resolution.
Right. Yeah, that we have to present it, that has to be presented today or be jeopardy of being subject to legal action.
Why, can you explain why, or what's that, or how?
I'd like to hear from the attorney.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure why that's the case.
Why it would fit was because the PPD, as the committee went there and negotiated, the PPD committee from our board negotiated directly with their board that they would be able to hold us as if we, those two members represented the issue.
Obviously, it would look bad if we didn't approve the contract that two members of this board approved. However, I don't see any, we can, but I don't see any problem with not.
So if we don't put it to vote, I mean, because that's the way it was presented to me, that if we would be possible, that the PPD could then say, listen, you negotiated in good faith, this is what we decided on within the committee, and you're now coming back to us and say that is not what we decided on, and you're not going to put it to vote. So, but we had two members that made an agreement with them, and now we're saying, well, I would, in that case, if that's the case, I ask for it to be then tabled.
Well, it's true there were two members that did negotiate this contract. The contract has not been voted on, therefore it's not,
There's no
it's
agreement.
not binding.
Yes.
That's correct.
We didn't bind the village to anything. We negotiated some terms to bring back to the board for a vote, period.
No, we can not pass it, but can we not put it to vote?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Well, if we could do, then I will amend that, and I will ask that if it goes, well, let's put it this way, if it should continue to go as a resolution to be voted upon, I ask the board members to vote no so that it can be properly addressed. Or if it agrees with the board at this time, I ask that the resolution be tabled so that we can handle more negotiations on the contract.
Is there a deadline on this contract? Do we need to have a certain
Well-
date that we should be?
We passed the deadline.
I think in all
Yeah,
due
we
respect
passed
to
the
the
deadline.
PPD sewer district, we owe them an answer one way or the other.
And how long has this been going on?
Well, when I first got here, it's probably
Since July.
4 months, anyway. So,
I believe the first.
If we approve this particular one, when does it expire? This
well,
particular
you can
contract?
approve it, and at any time, you can
20 years.
you can bring it up for renegotiation. I mean, I believe there's language in there, right, Dan?
365 days.
So we could approve it and then say, in the next coming year, we'd like to amend it and work on it to maybe make it work better for us, for the village.
Yeah, you could
Could we
do
do
that.
that?
The contract is for a 20-year period. However, it does have a provision stating that either the PPD or the village can move to terminate the contract, given 365 days' notice. And I think that's a very important part.
I think it's an
Of the
important part,
contract.
but I think you have to have a good reason behind termination.
Right.
And if you're agreeing on something now, you're saying that you're okay with it. To turn around the next day and say, well, 365 days from now, we don't think that's, starting tomorrow, we don't think this is a good contract anymore. And that's
The
not,
problem
that's
is
not fair.
our hardware is inadequate. So, and the board needs to think very carefully about having adequate hardware in the system that would provide for appropriate measurements.
What hardware are you talking about?
The inflow meter
Okay, well, let's address
of the
that,
village.
Dr. Barris.
Yes,
I talked to Betsy Sly, our chief operator, today.
Yes.
And she informed me that they have a meter that measures the outflow of the plant, which is
Yes.
what comes in goes out.
right. We've
It's-
discussed that
it's-
extensively.
And I don't know, so just for your information, if we were to use their flows versus our flows, it would amount to about 4% times the cost. You're billing them over 12 or 13% times the cost right now. So there's no reason to even consider a meter to measure the flows. You already have a good indicator, which happens to be, by the way, it's about twice what the water treatment plant produces, which is about 500 million gallons a year. That's what they produce. And so that all goes into the sewer line, a good part of it, most of it. And that doesn't even address infiltration into the sewer lines. But they're required by the state to measure the outflows, what goes out into the lake through the system. And it's a billion gallons of water and sewage. So there's no advantage for us to even consider. I mean, I understand, being consistent with, well, we're billing them on flows, we should use a formula based on our flows. But it's certainly no advantage to us to do that.
Well, the question is not whether it's the advantage. I think there's a question of essential fairness. So, and measuring the outflow is from the plant is not the same as measuring the inflow, which has suspended solids within it. So, and by Archimedes' principle, the volume of the fluid is apparently greater because of the solids. But the purpose of the plant is to extract those solids. So we don't have a fair measure. So equity is a question of interest.
What goes in comes out. That's how she put it.
Yeah, but she's pretending that everything that's going in is water,
so
and that's not
even
true.
if we just used the production at the water plant, it's still 8% of the total cost. That's still way below what we're charging them now. So there's no advantage for us to even to consider that. Now, as far as the arbitrary 1/2 of the rate that I proposed, that represents our actual. If you remember, and look at the last water quality report that you had, we had a 48% water loss. So that's where that 50% came from. There is no perfect measurement or way to bill for sewer waste. There just isn't any. Most communities use water consumption, but we don't sell them water. So we have an inflow meter that measures their inflow. So
They do
now, the other point I'd like to make is that this rate is not fixed in stone. When you're going through your budget and you determine that you need to raise your sewer rates, when you raise your sewer rates, their rate's going to go up automatically. So they are going to be participating. And if you look at our sewer rates, they're based on our budget and our total consumption or our total cost. And if we realize that we're not generating enough revenue to cover those costs, well, then there's a need to increase the rates. So when we increase our rate, their rate would go up proportionally.
But it's the formula that's based on that may not necessarily be an advantage to the village.
Well, the formula was, I just want to reiterate this one more time, because I think it's an important point. I used the benchmark of Carriage House when they were here, prior to them being here. PPD was paying anywhere from $80,000 to $95,000 a year. When Carriage House left, because there's such an important impact on their formula, the rates went up considerably. So they're paying anywhere from $120,000 to $140,000. One bill was $160,000.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so does that raise a question of fairness?
But also, the village rate went up. It's not only,
You're right.
Yeah.
everybody's
It was-
rate
it
went
was-
up,
it
that
went
was
up
understandable and expected.
Well, that's the thing is, it was expected to the village because of Carriage House going, so I don't find that to be
a remarkable way of deciding on fairness of allocations of costs. I think that we really should have a coherent review of the costs in order to, of the plant itself, to project the fee we're going to be charging them, whether it be annually or, it shouldn't be directly based on the village's cost. Matter of fact, theirs could actually change without ours changing, effectively, if their costs to the plant change. So I just think that we should definitely, instead of just comparing it to what the village used or used to use, we should direct their attention to the cost of the direct effect on the plant to derive our fees that we'd be charging them.
Trustee Barris, I was interested, you mentioned a gentleman's name you spoke to. Who was that gentleman?
Daniel Ayers.
And he's with?
He's the vice chairman of the PPD.
Dan, I have a question for you. We talked about the term of this agreement. We said 5 years would probably be reasonable, so can that just be amended here or just changed to 2023, which would be 5 years instead of 2039?
We can definitely actually amend that right now. The town doesn't have to agree to it, but we can amend it.
On our side amended, okay. Would that
Absolutely.
be, board, is that reasonable? Trustee Barris?
Restate the question.
The term of this agreement, instead of the 2039, to change it to 2023, which would be 5 years, which would be at that point, we could, the terms of their, like the first, 3 years was at 40 million gallons, and went down to 35 million gallons. So give them some time to, and us some time to see if this, what the effect of this, and if, at that time, if things change economically, whether they have more input into the system and or not, that we could change it at that time. So 5 years would seem like a reasonable term.
I don't think the term limit is relevant because we have the 365-day termination agreement, which is part of the contract.
Well, but that requires this board to stay here. By putting 5 years, you give the okay and actually the responsibility to any board that comes here to redo it.
I would feel
Right, but they
uncomfortable
can
with-
redo it every, on a year's notice, at any point. So over the next millennium. So,
Okay, and just myself.
I would feel better
more
with a
comfortable
5-year
with a smaller
contract.
contract.
and a 20-year contract.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that.
Does that seem reasonable, Jim?
Yeah,
Given the calculations that,
So can it be the one who passed today? Last.
I don't know what to do with it.
Anything else about this? All right, we go to new business, and then we have, I'm going to try to say it right, Paul Kazmerdiak? Karmazak, okay. National Grid, we had a discussion about LED lights before, and he's good enough to give us a presentation. Please, yeah.
5 copies of this presentation.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just quickly, my name is Paul Kazmierzak. I'm what's called the jurisdiction manager for National Grid. My friends call me Paul Kaz, make it easier. And I'm basically a business manager for National Grid. And I'm here to talk specifically about street lighting and conversion of the existing HID lights to LED lights. Jumping to the second slide, National Grid sent a proactive letter to the village in late 2018. As a result of that letter, I had a brief overview meeting with the mayor. And really what we're here specifically to request is a letter of intent from the village to convert approximately 594 existing HID lights. These are the Cobra heads specifically and only, to LED lights.
So it doesn't actually include everything? Because we do have other.
Correct.
Ornamental.
It's a great point. It does not at this time include the ornamentals, just the ones that are hanging on that Cobra arm off of our distribution poles.
Let's just see how we're gonna like it, how people are going to react to it as a beginning, as a first step.
Right, and it's all regulatory related. We are right now talking with the Public Service Commission, our regulator, about those ornamental lights and things like that. So we don't have an offering at this time for those, but it's just a matter of time before we do.
Is there quite a lot more lights that are ornamental in our system? Do you know offhand?
Offhand, I don't. I mean, the vast majority of them are these Cobra head HID lights, these 594. So I don't know the number off the top of my head of those.
Thank
But
you.
there are, you're right, there are quite a bit of those in the village as well. So just a little bit about the evolution of street lighting technology. You know, for over 100 years, we've evolved with different technologies, starting with gas lights, incandescence, mercury vapor, high-pressure sodium, which are the roadway lights now, to today, the LED lights, which I'm sure everybody has in their homes already in some way, shape, or form. Just jumping to the next slide, LED characteristics. LED, I get asked a lot, what does LED mean? Light-emitting diode. Obviously, they're much more energy efficient. They have a long life compared to the other technologies. The big difference that people and the residents will see is white light versus this amber light. No question about it. And the direction of the light. Whereas the existing HID lights have cast more of a dispersion, the LEDs focus much more on the street and have much less spill, as we say in our business. So it provides it's very dark sky friendly. They're instant on, vibration resistant, and obviously environmentally friendly. Just a couple of pictures on the next slides about that dispersion pattern. This is very non-scientific. We can provide all kinds of photometric data if requested by the Department of Public Works, things like that. I'm sure we probably all have driven through some municipalities already where you can noticeably see the LED street lights versus the HID lights. And there's just some pictures of that, how that effect looks.
Are there some municipalities that you know of that you've done this conversion on?
We're just in the process here, like in Chautauqua County. So we've already, but like if you go to the Muni electric systems, like Mayville, they're all converted. Jamestown, which is a Muni, is all converted. But basically all the municipalities touching you are in the process, some way, shape, or form of converting.
Okay, because I know like Westfield on 20 over the bridge there on the
Yeah.
west side has LED, and I'm not sure if the rest of the village does or not. Silver Creek too?
Brant Angola is done, so that's probably
Okay.
the closest one where you could drive to of ours.
Of yours, okay.
Yeah, to see that effect. That's a great question. Next slide kind of shows the effect on a parking lot, but not really applicable here, but just to show you that. Just, jumping up, I think on slide 8 for you. National Grid's been actively monitoring this marketplace since 2010. We've watched the industry had some initial issues. For utility, you know, what we offer and what we install here in the village has got to be consistent with what we put in Cohoes, New York on the east side. So we took our time in terms of investigating and making sure we picked the right fixture that can be used consistently throughout the upstate service territory. Worked with our regulators to make sure we picked out the right one. And like I said, we collaborate. And the big thing is we worked with our regulator to now give incentives to street lighting customers, municipalities, to install these as well. And that gets to the point of the matter here on slide 10. So by converting, everything stays the same in terms of them being company-owned National Grid assets. We fully maintain them. They get knocked down in the middle of the night. We come up and fix them. So it's a full-service street lighting arrangement, just like it is now with the HID lights. Again, it's only the roadway Cobra headlights only, dusk to dawn operation like it currently is. Pretty much everything stays the same except the technology we're going to be using to do that. So we targeted 271 proactively municipalities in upstate New York. The village of Fredonia was one of them because we know that your net book value is very close, or in your case, the incentive exceeds the net book value for this technology. So it's an offering to every municipality in New York State, but out of the box where we are targeting those where it looks very financially attractive for a municipality to proceed on a blanket basis. So this net book value for the village of Fredonia of just under $16,000, that's in essence the amount of money left that's owed the rate base for those existing lights that we installed ever years ago, and that we changed them throughout time. So that's the amount of money left undepreciated owed to the rate base by the village of Fredonia for those existing lights.
Were you going to be in the process of having to replace those anyhow? Is that the kind of also an incentive for?
There is that. I mean, there is that. The relationship is such that it's a lifelong relationship, and if at any time they go, we replace them. But in terms of a blanket replacement, it's not something we were doing.
Oh, okay.
No. Good question. So that net book value of just under $16,000 based upon the 594 HID lights in the village, we know that would result in a energy efficiency incentive of just under $40,000. So obviously, Village of Fredonia, that's a very attractive proposition.
That's an annual?
What's that?
That's an annual savings?
No, that's the one-time incentive to install them.
But the estimated energy efficiency incentive?
The operating savings, there's obviously savings involved, and depending upon what selection the village
I see what you're
makes,
saying, okay.
in terms of the replacement of the existing HID lights, will determine the amount of energy savings, which is something we'll do in the next step.
Okay.
We need to get to that next step, and that's really what we're here asking for, is to go to the next step.
So the
But,
savings, how exactly are you going to use these savings? Let's say going from this,
well, obviously, the vast majority of those 594 lights are 100-watt HID light. And the options in the tariff to replace that with LED are either going to be 25-watt or 48-watt
Sure.
LED. So that difference is going
Yes.
to drive the savings.
so we're going to see it in the amount we pay?
Yeah, absolutely. In your lighting bill to us is where it's going to show up.
Okay.
Your lighting bill now is a function of a facilities charge and then an energy charge. The facility charge, for all intents and purposes, depending upon, again, which one you select, will be essentially the same.
Same.
Yeah, that's the purchase, that's the maintenance, that's the ownership, and then the energy cost is going to be where the savings are really derived in the bill. And like I say, 100-watt, either minus 48 watts or minus 25 watts, depending upon your choice, there's savings there. So that's to come in the next phase, but there's definitely operating savings that then go on forever.
What would be the cost of adding a light? Right now, you're saying we have 594.
Right.
We might be interested in adding another light on a certain street in our village. What would that cost be?
Right. It's a tariff charge. Off the top of my head, depending upon what kind of light it is, they
It
usually.
would fall into your program, obviously. It's
It
just
would-
an
oh,
addition.
absolutely.
It's just an addition to the street. It
Absolutely.
just needs one more light. I'm just curious to see what.
It would go right in. They're like $100 to $200 to install that light, assuming we're putting it on one of our distribution
Correct.
poles with one of our standard arms.
Right.
There's all kinds of qualifications. We're not setting a new pole,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's in that ballpark. So, again, we think it's, the next slide, what we're asking for is a letter of intent to proceed with this conversion. That next step would get you a full inventory of every light in the village that's in our inventory system, where they're located, on what street, what's the current wattage of that light now. And then whoever the village would assign us to work with, I assume Public Works, we would then be looking for the village to make selections of each conversion to go to, what wattage light to go to.
And you mentioned when we met
Yes.
that we can have like a 50, we can start with a smaller number to see.
You have to do at least 15% of your total.
15?
Yes,
Okay.
15%, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it's
As a minimum. So, yeah.
about 100, yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
But if you only do 15 at start, you said there was limited amount of funds available through the incentive program?
That's correct.
So you might not be able to utilize that if it gets used up. You know, let's say you do 15% and you wait a year to do the rest of them, that
Yeah.
incentive may not be there.
Yeah. I don't want to predict how that is working because that's a New York State total number.
Is it like a NYSERDA thing?
It's not affiliated with NYSERDA. This is our own incentive
Okay,
program,
but
National
same
Grid.
principle though? I mean,
Same principle.
First serve, first come, first serve?
First come, first serve, right. And especially given that the economics are so attractive for these first 271, that's why we're out proactively talking to municipalities about it. Targeting those first, they seem like win-wins for everybody. So.
Well, I certainly think it's a good idea. And
Right.
That's why we talked about, I think it's a win-win situation, having upgrades downtown, nicely lit, we need that.
Right.
So I would definitely suggest that.
So how does the light output compare with what we have now? Like with the 25% or the 25 watt be comparable to the light we have now, or?
In terms of the photometrics, the lumen output, I mean, at the point of use on the street, the lumens say at 25 watts, it's the same. But that dispersion ring out of that point drops off a lot more on the LEDs.
Okay, so it spreads it out more.
It doesn't. It's more of a spot.
But the 48 would.
The 48 would make that spot bigger,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. So is it possible that if you got a 48, you might be able to eliminate some of the street lights?
Possibility. We haven't come across that, but it is a possibility. It's an option that the village could have, let's put it that way. Good point. Good point. We pretty much, every municipality, it's been a one-for-one replacement, and the choice is either 25 or 48 watt. And it really comes down to how lit is the street now?
Can you do different watts in different places?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can custom design every one of those 590.
Would it then make sense then possibly to add additional 25 watts where you may had 100 watt of the other type? So that you see, let's say it was, whether it was one 100 watt bulb before, bringing light only so far, and you could have 3 25 watts and still have less usage and covering a bigger area?
I'd say if it was a very lighting sensitive area where the existing lighting was viewed as not adequate to do that, keep in mind that facility charge would be charged for each light as opposed to the one facility charge with the 100 now. So your economics
Because of
might.
the facility charge?
Yes, sir.
I see.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. So it might not be,
Right.
but if it was a very sensitive area that had lighting issues, they might be a good thing to do.
I would like to see the village move towards an underground power system, and that would change the lighting situation considerably. Are there any sentiments about this?
In our lifetime?
Explain more.
Sorry?
In our lifetime? I mean, you're talking replacement
Yeah.
of all the aerial overhead
I think that would be
service.
fabulous.
That'd be fabulous, but holy cow, that would be a massive undertaking and.
It's quite expensive,
Well,
and we were discussing it a bit.
Certainly, but the question is the aesthetics, and we're talking about
You know, like in the
getting
North-
people to move to Fredonia and having pride in the community, and I think the overhead power lines are phenomenally ugly. So, comparing with the photographs of Fredonia a century ago.
It's like anything
So-
else, what would it cost us? You know?
Well, the
Right.
newer areas in the village have everything underground. Castile Heights, Bella, I mean, there aren't any lines up there, and it is much more
Oh,
attractive.
there's no question about it, but there would be, I'm sure there would be a tremendous cost involved.
There was a price to pay for that, for those choices.
I know.
By those
I
developers,
live here.
which then gets reflected on.
So, I mean, it has
But
some
it is more aesthetically pleasing.
implications for road safety. After all, we have a lot of collisions involving
Right,
Uh,
exactly.
automobiles and power poles. So, you know, if the power poles weren't alongside the road, then there would be less collisions.
I have a question between the gentleman here and Nate. Is there any other incentives, grant-wise, or anything that would assist us in this? And do we need any,
As far as conversion goes.
conversion?
Not to my knowledge, no. The offering is this energy efficiency incentive from National Grid.
National Grid incentive, okay. And Nate, you would, any kind of,
Not to my knowledge, the only note I'll make is perhaps in the project area for Parker Commons or the Smart Growth Award, you could piggyback on and pay for some of the conversions through that grant in that area.
those specific areas, okay.
Just want to stress, there is a timing thing. The net book value payment is required first. Assuming you go all the way through with installation, post-installation, the incentive is then given. So there is can't take the incentive, subtract from the, which a lot of municipalities ask us that question.
Yeah, to cut,
No.
you get the incentives afterwards.
Right. Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. So we have the police report for the month of January 2018. The building inspector end of the year report for 2018.
I did not receive that.
You did not?
The end of the year report for the building inspector. I received it for the month of February. Okay.
All right, thank you. Then we have sexual harassment policy. Actually,
Mayor, is that a sexual harassment or workplace violence?
that's sexual harassment.
Okay, it says workplace violence, harassment on your,
But I read the document, it doesn't strike me as a sexual harassment policy. It strikes me as a general harassment policy.
For this,
Regarding sexual harassment.
okay.
The document that was given to us, thank you, was
Which
based
one
on
did
a
I
state
say?
document?
Yeah, it seems more to me like just a workplace violence
Yeah.
That's the
harassment.
wrong one.
But that's what that is, correct?
Yes, that's that one.
Are we going to do anything with this one or not?
Not at this time.
Okay.
We'll file that.
So might we just table if?
I think we should table it until we get a chance to read it.
Yep.
So,
We weren't going to act on it, I don't, were we going to act on
no,
it?
we just discuss it.
Okay.
It's something that we need to pass, and Ryan was good enough to take the state recommendation and work through it to come to a actually a very good one, I thought. And you read it too, right? We need to pass it, and then we need to have all employees, even the part-timers and even the volunteers, go through it. And also, Ryan was good enough to propose that he can do all that. So, all right, let's take it next time. And then we have the DFT gifting of new camera for local public access station. And that was really good. Okay.
Chip, what will that do for you?
That improves us, allows us to put some icons on the screen for underwriting and also for some of the events that we do, the sporting events we do. Allows us to do a scoreboard on the bottom so we don't have to put another camera. Does some of that. It's a kind of a multi-use camera. It limits from having one person, allows one person to run a lot of it versus 3 or 4 people run the camera, different equipment. So, allows us to a lot of abilities to
Ship's life easier.
change. So if you watch any of the football or basketball games or anything, you'll see the icon on the bottom of the score. This camera allows us to do that with an iPad. And it also allows us to put like a little icon we call lower third on the bottom right or left side of the screen for underwriting procedures or a full screen, like if you guys go into executive session or you have a delay between the time we go from one meeting to another meeting, we can put a full thing up to stand by for the trustee, board meeting or whatever. They can put different icons in, so it allows us to do a lot more than just shut the camera off and put it to the clock, which is what we usually do.
So this can also be used as a backup camera to the one you have currently?
It'll probably be used as primary camera for now, for most of the events, and this as a backup, and also allows us to have another nicer camera to use down the stairs for doing performance down there. We're trying to start up with studio, so we've got a switcher down there. The camera we use for the second switcher is a little handheld camera about this big. It's a $300-400 camera, but it doesn't, it works, it's just not the quality it requires. So it allows us to do a lot more into it.
Well,
And DNF Telephone's been able to donate that for contribution.
will this change anything in your requests during budget
Yes.
time?
Yes, it will change our budget request down a little bit. So it gets us down, we were originally put in for two cameras for that, so it'll probably be put down to one camera for purchase for next year's budget or upcoming budget.
That's great. I want to thank Kurt Matum and DFT Communications for that. It was a great gift, a very big surprise. Really appreciate it, really appreciate it. Thank you.
I
Good.
just want to illustrate that getting the one camera to do all of that stuff just shows how hard Chip works and all he does and all of the manipulation and stuff to bring us the programs that we have. So thank you, Chip, too.
I couldn't have ordered the camera that makes you all skinny. I mean, I'm sorry.
That's a good idea. She's skinny, don't worry about
It's a lot
that.
more money for that.
Getting much skinnier.
You know, we're not gonna get him through the door now, his head's not gonna
Yeah, I
fit
know.
by you saying that.
Yeah. Smarty.
All right, anybody else have anything?
I've got a little bit under old business, if I could bring up something. During our January 22nd meeting, we had mentioned, we passed a resolution for the Farm Festival to have a parade and the street be closed between 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. The correction during the letter that was given to us from the festival's Fredonia states that the parade starts at 1 p.m. So we're going to have to, I don't know, amend that resolution or change that resolution or something to allow the ample time to close off the street for
Do
the
we need to
parade.
pass another one or just fix
We
the
can
one?
just amend it orally. It's not a
Amend it
problem.
orally?
Okay.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to bring that to the attention.
Yeah, if you want to make a motion tonight, Roger, we can amend it orally.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, also, under the minutes from last meeting, I don't know if we make, there was a correction in a motion for a resolution for the markets in the summertime. It was improperly posted, it was unanimous, it was a 4-1 vote, so I don't know if we want to change that now.
Yes, and she called it before, so we
Okay.
fixed that, yeah.
And,
It's already fixed, yes, thank you.
and also, Dan, from last meeting with the DOT, with the raised manhole covers there, you said the DOT had a request for that. Is there any way I get a copy of that request that they sent to request that we move on that
I suppose
resolution?
Tony has that. Do you have it?
Or the clerk's office has it. I don't
I don't know
have a
who has
copy
it.
of it. Do you have a copy of that one?
No.
Okay. We can get you a copy.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem.
Thanks. That's all. Thank you.
Anything else?
Just got one other quick thing under our open discussion. I asked Larry Farella to stop by, and last week I mentioned, I asked Chuck how many food truck permits we had issued since the new law took into effect, and I believe the answer was 0. Thank you very much. So Larry bent my ear the other day and wanted to have an open discussion regarding a permit for a single-day event.
Yeah.
You want to explain to the board what?
I think the code says the least amount is a week, and then it goes on a week or month, 6 months or a year pricing. And what I'm advocating is an event.
I
Just
don't believe so.
an
I
event
think it was a one-year permit for the one set fee.
Just 1 year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm asking for like an event type permit, 1 day or a 6-hour, 8-hour, because they only come in for a day when they're here with us.
That was a rather key point in the discussions in the committee concerned with that. So, and the purpose of it was to discourage intrusion on the brick and mortar restaurants business. So, I had a lot of discussion privately about this issue too as well. People caught me on the street and expressed concern about it. So,
But then I guess, how is that going to affect the festivals when you just have a variety of people come in for
They're
one
not
day?
gonna pay
Right, and that's what
$5
we
fee,
want.
not
We
for
want
one
those
day.
people to come.
And what I-
Or to get those food trucks.
I was also-
That was where the complaints came from the restaurant owners to me about that, was that they were very upset about the fact that the food trucks were there.
Well.
And they were
that-
taking the business away from the brick and mortar.
I hope you explained, Dr. Barry, since you were part of the committee, that we took care of that. First of all, they have to be,
did.
any food truck has to be 100 feet away. The restaurant owners, they can have their own food truck without having to pay any kind of money. And I think and the permit for the food trucks is quite high. So we did take care of that, and that was in the law from the beginning. It was not after they came with the complaints. We thought about it, of course. I mean, people are paying taxes and have restaurants here, but at the same time, as this is a phenomenon that is all over the United States, we cannot just leave the village out of it. I mean, that was the and I remember we discussed a bit the one event, if you remember.
It just never
Chuck.
came out of the actual.
Yeah, I think the intent was to encourage them to have it, you know, because if they have it for a year, they can come at any point.
And they can stay all year.
Right.
Don't forget, we gave the Festivals Fredonia a special rate too
Right.
for the season. So they're not paying the $500, they're paying $300, and they can come anytime. You know, if they choose to come just one event, that's fine, but they can come every weekend if they wanted to.
Larry, what were you thinking? Like, what were you?
Well, we're just trying to entice, you know, I don't know, try to get a taste of them to come down, and then we're
Then maybe
hoping.
they'll pay the fee for the year or half a year or an event on the weekends, weekend events. And it could be as simple as, it's a one-day event. We take an inventory of the food trucks that have come in, not the booths, food trucks. We write a letter to the board of trustees and say, this is how many were here. Then you would invoice us for whatever you feel was necessary to pay, $25, $20 for that one day, and then we would pay the village that. Festivals would pay the village that. We would include it in the cost for the food truck, and then turn around and pay them, the village, that fee from that special event.
My only problem with that is that then everybody will do something like that, and they will come for $25. And I mean, then, you know what I mean? Unless they say you can come, like,
Not if it's an event, that's the thing, I mean. I only have 5 events, so,
Right.
yeah,
I mean, it's gotta be event driven. It has to be a specific event.
right.
So
right.
if Rock in the Commons had food trucks come down here, that would be an event-specific thing.
Okay, was this certainly
Should the
that
committee
yours?
reconvene and discuss?
I just wanted to open the conversation, maybe we could, you know, bring that committee back, or,
Well, as like the mayor said, I mean, this was not a mistake. This was purposely, discussed. We're trying to balance the idea of the brick and mortar restaurants, which were very upset about the food trucks, with the food truck business. Like I said, it's not a mistake. I mean,
we're
this
not
was-
treating it as a mistake,
Well,
we're
and
just
the thing
trying
of it
to.
is, I think we should give it a year. I mean, the committee listened to the brick and mortar restaurants.
Sure.
Okay? The committee listened to the food truck people. This was the best kind of combination they could come up with. I'm just not sure we should change it yet. We haven't really even given it a try. But I mean, that's all.
I don't know, I mean,
that's
I
not
brought
me.
Larry in to discuss this, I mean, you're getting the feedback from the,
From the food trucks.
From the
then
food
they don't
trucks.
come.
And Mr. DeJohn would be with his hair on fire going the other direction.
And also
Approached
let you
them.
know, I mean,
Right.
I don't know if you could tell exactly how much business restaurants have lost because of the food trucks.
I mean,
but they're not, but
overall-
Kara, we're looking at an event.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I personally think food trucks are great, and I would like to see them, and I would like to see the events. So I'm kind of, I don't want to take any business away from the businesses, the brick and mortar, who pay taxes and have been here for generations. They're very important to the village. But I'm not exactly sure exactly how much business has been taken away because there's a food truck in the park. Do you know what I mean? I don't really
Yeah.
think a lot of
I spoke with
business
the
has been
manager
taken
from
away from
EBC 2 years in a row doing the food trucks when we first started. They said during the day, when it was nice outside, they were not busy. When it got to be evening though, when people came in for dinner, then it got busy. It was quite the opposite when the weather was not that good. When the weather wasn't good, they were busy in the afternoon, but not so much in the evening. So that was actually kind of weather dependent on
The
that.
data overall is that there is no, if there is any kind of influence, let's say, it's a positive one, because people who come for the food trucks, they notice the rest of the stores here, and if they like what they see, they can come back when the food trucks are not here. So I think that's the data from all over the country, and that's why, I'm certainly open to discussion if you want to.
Well, like Chuck said, we haven't issued a single food truck permit. So I mean, how can we even say we tried?
Oh, yes, Chuck.
Don't forget, there's a lot of paperwork involved in this. There's an inspection of each of those food trucks that I have to do. There's a background check that the police department has to do. There's a lot of paperwork that's involved in this. And certainly those food trucks can come back all year if they wanted to. You know, we're not telling them it's just a one-time thing. And they're getting a break as it is already, you know. So I think it's very confusing to who we offer breaks to and who we don't. It gets complicated at that point then. Because you have a lot of festivals and stuff going on. You have the Opera House doing their thing a couple times a year. And you've got other events that they're going to come and want to do the exact same thing.
Larry, the festivals, Fredonia, you say you have 5 events that food trucks would come to? And plus,
5
some-
events they're able to.
that they're able to, and then some miscellaneous other events from the Opera House and whomever else.
Could the college could do it. They haven't invited a food truck yet, I don't think.
What's the sentiment of the food truck operators, that if there isn't a specific event here, that just to come sit downtown, you're probably not gonna get a lot of,
I can't see ones from Buffalo coming in, even paying a $500 fee and coming down.
so they're gonna make any
parking
money
for
on
a day.
it.
I just don't see it. I don't think Siri Thai is gonna pay $500 to operate, so.
See, the discussion from the beginning was that food trucks who came for the Italian festival the first time, their argument was, I'm going to give you $50, and whatever I make, I made. And I'm just afraid that if we go to that, and it's just going to be, nobody's going to get a permit for to come more. Now, if you want to think as like a 1 year thing, I'm not sure. Maybe we can discuss it again. I'm just trying to be fair to the village, be fair to the rest of the owners, the restaurant owners, to Chuck back there, and at the same time to you and the Festival of Fredonia, because we need the people who come and visit and be part of the festival. So just, thank you for that. Let's think about it.
There are food trucks that do attract people from outside the area. They'll come in from Buffalo if they know that food truck's gonna be there. For example, if we invited Lloyd's, there would be people coming in from Buffalo, people coming in from Erie. The college would come over. The college didn't even know we were having red, white, and blues until they came over to Lloyd's. Chefs would be another one that would bring people down from Buffalo as well. So they have the attraction, and it's not necessarily, wow, they're gonna be here only for the food truck. They'll see Fredonia, and maybe they'll come back. That's the idea, is they will continue to come in.
Larry, was this new policy in effect for any of the festivals that you've had so far, or is this new season the first season?
It's the first season.
I guess I would suggest then to if it works this season, I get both sides, but we haven't seen if it's gonna even work yet, so, I don't know. My thought would be, let's see if it's.
Reach out to a couple of those food trucks and see what they say. If they
If
say
it
they're not
flops,
coming, then,
you know it didn't work.
yeah. Okay. That's
Well,
all.
come back
Thanks, Larry.
and tell us, please. Okay, because certainly we
don't
want to
know.
see the festivals get ahead. All right, anything else? The others. It's nice. A pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I call this meeting to order. At a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia, duly called and held on the 4th day of March 2019 at 7:30 p.m. in the Trustees' Room, second floor, Village Hall, Fredonia, New York. And public notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given to the news media and conspicuously posted in one or more designated public locations in accordance with Section 104 of the Open Meetings Law.
Whereas members of this board present at this meeting have read the official minutes of the Board of Trustees regular meeting of February 19th, 2019. Now therefore be it resolved, this board approves the minutes as entered into the official minutes, and be it further resolved that the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
I second that.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Essek?
This is with the one correction?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Trustee Breeze?
Yes.
Trustee Barris?
Aye.
There's nobody here from public.
Hey, Chip.
Okay.
Chip.
Okay.
This portion of the meeting is for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak, once recognized, shall stand and state their name and address. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes if speaking for themselves or 5 minutes if speaking on behalf of a group. I will ask the speakers to refrain from remarks that are in poor taste, slanderous, or not germane to any action taken or contemplated by the board.
Hi, Chip Revolt, 188 Liberty Street, Village of Fredonia. I have two questions for you. One, regarding the LED lighting you're referring to. A long time ago when the mayor was Mr. Sullivan, Mike, he requested at one time for some lights to be removed from the city street, village streets. How would you consider looking into that? Because some of the replacing your LED will allow you to add more lights in some of the areas that were requested to be reduced. One section being the light you're referring to on Central Avenue by the college that you're looking to replace. That light was a light that was removed because of light consumption and costs. So please look into that. I'd ask you to do that. My other question, your idea about the food trucks. My question is does the college have to obey by that same law when they bring food trucks in, or are they exempt?
Exempt.
If the college has it on their property, it would be exempt.
Okay, so if someone has it on their property, privately owned, as an individual, maybe I decide to have a food truck. Am I allowed to have that food truck without them paying that payment?
There's a provision in the law that allows for that, but you have to be solely for that private event rather than open for business.
So an event, towards an event, so what happens to people who have a parking lot? I see the food trucks during the summertime at Verizon's facility. I know that's not our district, I believe.
Yes, it is. It is. They should be paying for a permit.
That would require a permit.
So they would require.
It would.
That would require a
Even though
permit.
it's on their property.
That would require a
They're selling-
permit
they're selling
if
to the
they're
general
open
public.
If they're open to the public. If I say, hey, I want to have a food truck at Chip's birthday party. All right, rock on. We're gonna have Thai food. Here's the thing: you don't have to pay it. You don't have to pay an event permit for that truck because it's a private event. You contract with the contractor. That's it.
Okay,
All right.
all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, closing the public portion. And just to make sure, you're asking for more lights, correct?
Yeah, like I said, there's areas that have been real dark, and if you go
Thank
through the village, you'll see.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a good
But
idea.
as he said, it would require more surface the fee associated with that, because that's when I asked him for multiple. There would be
Well, I
additional
also
fee.
asked them what the cost would be to add lights, so.
Right.
You said about
It's the same thing. Yeah.
So again, consider that when you want to add more lights.
Sorry, didn't,
The difference in this
I
LED
shouldn't
and
speak up.
wattage is if you look at the college and go to
it's
the
never
college,
there.
a lot of our lights, if you look on around the ring road, look at those lights and then look at the lights we have on other parts of the campus, the surface one. Your span is a lot bigger, so you see a great improvement by going with a higher wattage like LED that will stretch it farther and give you a better contribution of light down the road.
Thank you. Okay. For my report, I want to talk about Brooks Hospital. I chose to stay out of the debate for obvious reasons. However, after petitions, protests, inaccurate statements, and even some plainly wishful thinking, I believe it's time to have an adult conversation and consider what's at stake. So let's start from the basics. Brooks Hospital is not a public hospital. It's private, not-profit organization, like a church. If you doubt that, try to go and attend one of their meetings. They're not open to the public. And I have a question. Does the people of Dunkirk have any input into who is appointed to the board of directors? I know the answer is no. Although I agree that we, as the people, should have a role in the big decisions that affect us all, the truth is that's not always possible. Number two, Brooks Hospital, like most rural hospitals, has had some serious financial challenges over the last decade. Although it's easy to assign blame, specifically to the board, let's say, the reality is much more complicated and has to do with the fact that healthcare has been changing in America. Simply put, the number of admissions has declined dramatically because physicians are able to perform more and more services at their offices, and because new surgical techniques have decreased the need for overnight stay. Faced with very difficult decisions, the board decided to apply for a New York State grant. They were awarded $67 million in all. However, like every other grant, the money came with strict conditions. 3 to be exact. Number 1, Brooks Memorial had to merge with TLC Lakeshore in one organization. I understand they recently have done that. Number 2, Brooks Hospital has to downsize and build a new, up-to-code facility. It's worth noticing that the current one cannot be renovated because of structural and infrastructure issues, as well as code compliance ones. Deciding to build, the board looked into using the existing lot. However, there are state regulations that dictate, based on the projected footprint, the number of required parking spaces, as well as the need for a retention pond. Add to that the helipad, so we can take our people out to a more advanced help. And the lot needed to be about 25 acres, which is way more than the existing 4.7. Number 3, the Central Avenue location must be reused or repurposed. After the announcement was made in 2016, over 24 sites were proposed by landlords, owners, or municipalities. This information was made available to us at the last meeting with representatives from the hospital board. The people who have been organized all the protests trying to keep the hospital at the current location were also there. I have to say this, if anyone left that meeting without the sense that the whole project could be in jeopardy quite easily, they weren't paying too much attention. I'm happy the new hospital is going to Old Cornell site inside the village of Fredonia. I can tell you the reasons why I proposed and lobbied for it. Number 1, I have been worried about the future of the hospital for a few years now. I'm mortified that something can go wrong, leaving 30,000 people without easy access to one. Since the first week after my election, people came talking to me and promoting regional solutions. This is by far the best regional opportunity in many, many years. When people are contemplating moving into a new area, they check schools and healthcare accessibility. Not the existence of a shared police facility. Number 2, I objectively think that this is by far the best location for a regional hospital in the North County. Sure, there are a few minor issues that need to be taken care of, like traffic, accessibility, another entrance, and we're working on those. I'd like to remind the board and everybody else, we say traffic. Well, a few years back, Conagra was open, and we had a lot of traffic on Main Street. Big lorries, big trucks full of tomatoes. So we were having heavy traffic. I understand the concerns, however, and we are discussing it and trying to find solutions to that. Number 3, as the mayor of Fredonia, is my fiduciary responsibility to look for and promote the interest of the people of this village. Obviously, and up to a point, understandably, there are people on the other side that are not as happy as I am. Although I don't know, I can speculate as to their reasons. Number 1, they're from Dunkirk. They love their city, they love their history, and honestly believe that this is not good for them. Number 2, although I don't want to believe it, I can't help but think that the fact that it's coming to Fredonia is a big factor. For a year now, when Brooks was going to the town of Pomfret, there were no protests, no petitions, and no one accused the town supervisor for conspiring to either woo the people here or steal the hospital away from Dunkirk. Number 3, both organizers are running for election this year, and this seems to be a safe platform. And yes, I'm running too, but the difference is that I proposed this site in 2016 after my election, not before one. As I said, this is understandable. What is totally baffling to me is why one of our trustees took part in that protest. Mr. Doug Essek, Fredonia trustee, was there supporting the hospital staying in Dunkirk. I don't know what is in your heart, but in your position, visuals matter. You were there not only supporting a move that could stop a $70 million investment in the village, but also giving them ammunition when you told them that our sewer system was not adequate, which was, by the way, totally untrue. I'm sorry. I know Frank Bates thanked you for being there. I can't help but seeing that as a bridge to your fiduciary responsibility to the people who voted for you. That's my report. Trustee Christina.
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. Linden.
Yes. For my report, when making agreements to provide services such as sewage treatment to outside the village districts, I cannot stress enough the importance of generating sufficient revenues through full cost recovery of expenses and overhead incurred as a direct result of operations and support of that service. Because 2 members of this board, Mr. Essek and Dr. Barris, have taken into their own hands the negotiation of the PPD contract while removing the village attorney from attending the meeting, and without prior direction of the attorney or the mayor or the board, they may have put the village in a position that the inside the village customer will be subsidizing the district sewage treatment. I feel having no coherent cost structure and plan for recovering the full cost of the sewage treatment services provided, you are creating a financial deficit to the village wastewater treatment plant department and jeopardizing the continued delivery of the services it provides. I do feel that the process of how the village addresses the handling of contracts such as this district contract should be changed to not include any two board members in a committee where they may be held to an agreement before the full board has given prior consent to proceed. The mayor and whoever necessary should conduct contact with the client and provide relevant information to the board as the negotiations progress. The idea here is to produce fair and equitable contracts. That's my report.
Thank you. Trustee Essek.
Yes, I'd like to address you, Mayor. First of all, I support our communities. I support both Fredonia and Dunkirk and everybody that surrounds us. If you remember also, I supported J.C. Penney and Trustee Christina's effort to keep that in town. That was not in the village of Fredonia, that was in the city of Dunkirk. I feel that I support transparency. I support public engagement. I support the stakeholders in this, and the stakeholders involve the entire community, both Fredonia, Dunkirk, and everybody that surrounds us. You're right, 30,000 people, that's more than just the village of Fredonia. By showing my support, I support the public engagement. I'll support public engagement in Fredonia here if we have a situation of the same thing. By no means am I making the village of Fredonia residents less favorable or not representing them fairly. I'm just representing the citizens of our community and how it affects everybody. Public involvement that has not been included in this project, as well as other projects in our area that have taken place that aren't going 100%. It's a lack of public engagement, public involvement. And when you utilize taxpayers' dollars, that's what you need. You need public involvement and engagement. That's their money. So my being there, I supported public engagement and transparency and the stakeholders in the community. And there was also other Fredonia residents there as well. I was not the only Fredonia resident there, so there were Fredonia residents there. As far as the sewer, I did ask some employees about what connections could be made, and the drawings from the hospital aren't very exact. They say they connect to a current line. If the current line is the line that's on Route 20, it's inadequate, Mayor. If it isn't, if they use the lateral behind it that goes behind Walmart that connects to the main trunk line on 60, then it's adequate. But if they were proposing connecting to the Main Street line, that would involve adding infrastructure. And yes, if that's not upfront and transparent in the beginning, then that's an added cost that the village of Fredonia taxpayers would have to brunt.
No,
I don't know the
no,
exact cost of
no,
it.
no.
Mayor, I did not interrupt you. Please do not interrupt me. So that was that. And if you say that having relationships with your surrounding communities, leaders is wrong, then I'm not sure what to say about that. I do have relationships with other town supervisors, and I know other people. Just because I have relationships with them does not mean that I put Fredonia residents at less than anybody else. That's all.
Thank you. First of all, J.C. Penney was not moving to Fredonia. Second of
This
all,
isn't a debate, Mayor.
second of all, I know, I'm just gonna, this is a very important
This isn't a
thing.
debate. This is the time.
This is
for-
crazy.
Okay,
You- your point-
it's crazy?
No, I didn't say it was crazy. I just said these are
Okay,
the
Mr.
trustees.
Bitts
These are the-
here
yeah, these are
thanks
the-
you for being there as a trustee. So, okay, end of discussion, we're not gonna discuss anything else. Mr. Briggs, Mr. Barrett, oh, sorry, Mr. Briggs,
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Barris, Dr. Barris.
I have no comment.
All right, going forward. Have the reports?
The first report's the police report for the month of January 2019. Incidents reported 638. Fredonia Central School calls for service 1. Accidents 15. Arrests reported 29. Vehicle and traffic 41. Parking tickets 112. The Code Enforcement Month End Report for February 2019, permits issued 11, inspections 10, certificates of occupancy 5, certificates of compliance 15, violations found 10, violations satisfied 6. Total fees collected $5,525.00. I have a year-end report from the Fredonia Code Enforcement for 2018. A total of 289 permits were issued, 466 inspections, 118 certificates of occupancy, 172 certificates of compliance, 154 violations found, 78 violations satisfied, 3 re-inspections. Total fees collected for the year were $87,758.45. And those are all the reports.
Thank you. Resolutions.
Whereas the police chief, Brad Myers, has recommended that Officer Jacob Berger be removed from probationary status to permanent full-time police officer status. Now therefore be it resolved that Officer Berger is hereby appointed to the position of permanent full-time police officer for the village of Fredonia and is considered to have sufficiently completed his probationary status. And this appointment shall take effect March 7th, 2019.
I second the resolution.
Trustee Christina.
Yes, but does it matter how his name is spelled? It should be Berger. I don't know if that makes a difference.
I'll change it. That's, do you see that on his report?
His name, I don't, just here, his name should be Berger.
Okay, 'cause
That's how he
from
spells
the-
his last name. I don't
Okay.
know how it is on the report.
That's how I spelled with
Okay.
what I got, so I'll change it.
Okay, so, yes.
Thank you.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Be it resolved that Mark Conklin of Jamestown, New York, is hereby appointed to the position of part-time police officer effective immediately at a rate of pay of $14 per hour with no other benefits, subject to all civil service rules and regulations.
I second that motion.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Be it resolved that the training request of volunteer firefighters Christina Aarons and Adam Aarons and Anthony DeRusso to travel outside of Chautauqua County for the purpose of attending the Pinsky Law Group Law and Management Conference in Verona, New York from March 28th to the 31st, 2019, at no cost to the village is hereby approved.
I second that.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Whereas the village requires technical assistance for its wastewater treatment plant project, and whereas the Municipal Solutions, Inc. is offering to provide professional services to assist the village with this project at an estimated cost of $40,000. Therefore, be it resolved, the mayor is hereby authorized to direct to enter into an agreement with Municipal Solutions, Inc.
I second the resolution.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Whereas the village proposes to refund the village's $4,559,000 public improvement serial bonds, and whereas the refund requires technical assistance, and whereas Municipal Solutions, Inc. is offering to provide professional services to effectuate the village's refund at a fixed cost of $22,000. Therefore, be resolved, the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to enter into an agreement with Municipal Solutions, Inc.
I second that.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Be it resolved that the sale of the Sterling dump truck to Matthew Teese, Fredonia, New York, for the sum of $6,579 is hereby approved. Said vehicle is sold in as-is condition.
I second the resolution.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Whereas the Fredonia Fire Department's 2013 Ford Explorer has been removed from service as it has exceeded its useful life, and whereas the Fredonia Chrysler has offered a 2019 Dodge Durango at a cost of $28,050 on state contract bid pricing before a $5,500 trade-in for the Explorer, and whereas a 1075 emergency vehicles have offered to outfit the new Durango with emergency equipment, light, siren, etc., at a cost of $5,790.22. Therefore be it resolved, the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to purchase the aforementioned 2019 Dodge Durango at a total cost not to exceed $28,340.22.
I'll second the motion.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Essek?
Before, Jim, this is also, you said the monies will be transferred from the capital fund. Does that need to be included in
I
there?
wanted that included in the resolution.
Sorry.
Could,
want me to
are we
reread
too
it?
late? Do I need, how can we solve this?
If you want to make an oral amendment to the resolution, that's fine.
Can I make an amendment to the resolution saying that the monies will be transferred from the capital fund to the fire department line?
I'll second it.
That's fine.
Thank you. Yes, with that amendment?
Trustee Briggs?
Yes.
Trustee Barnes?
Aye.
To the rest of us have to vote for the amendment, right?
No,
Rest of you.
it's amended.
Don't we have
Do
to
we all
vote?
need to vote on
Vote
it?
on the
Yes.
amendment?
Okay.
Yes.
I vote
So
yes.
Trustee Christina and Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Okay.
We already, all
Is that
voted.
everyone?
Everybody already voted, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Whereas the the Village Fire Hall requires repair and renovation, and whereas Wendell Engineering has offered to provide design and bidding services for the project at a cost of $41,500, therefore be it resolved, the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to enter into a contract with Wendell Engineering to provide design and bidding services for the Village Fire Hall at a cost not to exceed $41,500.
I second the resolution.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
Trustee Briggs?
Yes.
Trustee Barnes?
Aye.
Be it resolved, the village clerk is hereby authorized to advertise for informal sealed bids for the sale of unused village vehicles and/or equipment no longer needed for village purposes. Said bids shall be received at the village clerk's office, 9 through 11 Church Street, Fredonia, New York, until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, March 20th, 2019, at which time the bids shall be publicly opened and read aloud. The Village Board of Trustees reserves the right to reject any and all bids and to accept the bid deemed most advantageous to the Village of Fredonia. Said vehicles/equipment shall be sold in as-is condition, and no warranties of any kind are made with respect to the following vehicles/equipment: 2013 black and white Ford Taurus, 2003 red Chevy Suburban, 1993 red Tennessee Giant Leaf Vac pull behind. Natural gas generator, ON Model 30 EC KAC 277 volt - 480 volts, 1978 yellow Bombardier sidewalk plow.
I'll second the motion.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
Trustee Briggs?
Yes.
Trustee Barnes?
Aye. Whereas New York State Empire Development is offering a $2.5 million grant for economic development and tourism in Fredonia. And whereas the village, if it receives the grant, would only be required to pay 1% of the grant amount awarded from community development funds, be it resolved, the village agrees to apply and pay the $25,000 application fee to pursue this grant opportunity.
I second that.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
Trustee Briggs?
Yes.
Trustee Barnes?
Aye.
A resolution that authorizes, subject to permissive referendum, the issuance of an additional $318,387 bonds of the Village of Fredonia, Chautauqua County, New York, to pay part of the cost of the reconstruction of various water distribution lines of said village.
I second that, sorry.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
Trustee Briggs?
Yes.
Trustee Barnes?
Aye. Whereas the village operates a sewage treatment plant located in the town of Dunkirk, New York, which has extra capacity. And whereas the Portland, Pomfret, Dunkirk Sewer District collects sewage from its users but does not have treatment infrastructure. And whereas an agreement to process the sewage of the district would generate revenue for the village, while providing a much-needed service to the district. And whereas the parties are authorized to enter into this agreement pursuant to General Municipal Law, Section 119-A, County Law, Section 265, and District Resolution, therefore, be it resolved, the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to sign the sewage treatment services agreement with the Portland-Pomfret-Dunkard Sewer District.
I second that motion.
Trustee Christina.
No.
Trustee Linden.
No.
Trustee Isaac.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Before we go, I forgot Dan's report, and I apologize for that. So,
Not a problem, Mayor. Just very briefly, I did attend a number of hospital meetings the last couple of weeks. Just want to kind of give everybody a report about what I heard. What I heard was two things that really kind of surprised me a little bit. First of all, that the money disappears if the hospital does not break ground by May. So, you know, all this discussion of we need more studies, we need to do this, we need to look at that. Basically, the end result is going to be that we don't have a hospital at all. That surprised me a little bit. The thing that made me feel better, though, was having gone to the zoning board and the planning board and all the rest of the meetings, everybody's concerned about the traffic. My concern as well. The hospital has assured me, talking to their attorneys, that they are working on that. DOT is not being very productive, but it's still in contention, and they understand how important that is. So I just wanted to assure everybody that they are working on it. But I also wanted to caution everyone that to fight this position for the hospital may result in no hospital at all. Thank you. That's my report.
thank you very much. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Be there no further business, I make a motion to adjourn.
I second that?
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Isaac.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
I'm sorry.